Life has a way of throwing us into the deep end, doesn't it? We plan, we prepare, we work hard, and yet things still slip through our fingers. A loved one falls ill, an opportunity vanishes, a relationship crumbles, and suddenly we're standing in the middle of chaos, grasping for something solid to hold on to. And here's the truth most of us struggle with. We are not in control of everything. No matter how much we try to predict, prevent, or plan, there are forces at work beyond our understanding. That's where fear creeps in. It whispers, what if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I lose everything? And before we know it, we're drowning in worry over things we were never meant to carry. But what if, instead of fighting for control, we surrendered? Not in weakness, not in defeat, but in trust. What if we released our grip and believed, truly believed, that even when life feels uncertain, even when answers don't come, even when the path is unclear, we are still being guided towards something greater than we could ever imagine? We like to believe we have control. We build schedules, set goals, create 5-year plans, and convince ourselves that if we just work hard enough, plan well enough, and stay disciplined enough, everything will go exactly as we expect. But then life happens. A job we thought was secure slips away. A relationship we poured our heart into falls apart. A diagnosis comes out of nowhere. Suddenly, the illusion of control shatters, and we're left standing in uncertainty, wondering why things didn't go the way we planned. It's in these moments that we come face to face with a truth we don't like to admit. We are not in control of everything. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because if we're not in control, what happens next? What if it all falls apart? What if the unknown swallows us whole? Fear loves these questions. It feeds off our need for certainty, whispering worst-case scenarios into our minds and convincing us that if we don't hold on tighter, we'll lose everything. But here's the paradox. Control was never ours to begin with. The tighter we grip, the more exhausted we become. The more we try to force outcomes, the more we realize how little power we actually have over the big things. And yet, in that realization, there is also freedom. Because if we were never meant to carry the weight of the world, then maybe, just maybe, we can put it down. Maybe we can breathe again. Maybe we can release the fear and trust that even when life feels like it's unraveling, something bigger is at work. Think about the times you fought so hard to control an outcome, only to realize later that what you thought was a loss was actually protection, a missed opportunity that made space for something greater, a door that closed so the right one could open. Looking back, haven't you seen the pattern? Haven't you seen the way things fell into place in ways you never could have planned? So what if instead of gripping tighter, you chose to let go, not out of defeat, but out of trust? Trust that even in the uncertainty, even in the unknown, you are being led somewhere meaningful. Trust that the things beyond your control were never meant to be carried alone. Trust that even when you don't see the full picture, there is a greater story unfolding, one that is far bigger, far deeper, and far more beautiful than anything you could have written for yourself. Fear has a way of creeping in when we least expect it. It doesn't knock, it doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up, quiet at first, like a whisper in the back of your mind. What if this doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if I lose everything? And before you know it, that whisper turns into a roar, flooding your thoughts, tightening your chest, convincing you that the only way to feel safe is to grasp for control. We don't like uncertainty. We crave answers, clarity, guarantees. We want to know how the story ends before we take the next step. But life doesn't work that way, does it? Life hands us unknowns, twists, moments that make no sense. And instead of sitting with the discomfort, we scramble to fix, to plan, to manipulate outcomes, anything to silence the fear of what if. But here's the truth. Fear is a liar. It thrives in uncertainty, feeding on our doubts, convincing us that if we don't have all the answers, we are in danger. It tells us that we must control everything or everything will fall apart. But what if we stopped believing that lie? What if we recognized fear for what it really is? Not a warning, not a prophecy, but simply a reaction to the unknown. What if, instead of trying to control every outcome, we leaned into trust, not blind, passive trust, but a deep, steady trust, the kind that says, even if I don't have all the answers, I am still held. Even if I don't see the whole plan, I am still being guided. Even if I don't know what's next, I know I am not alone. The irony is, the more we try to control, the more fear we create. And the more we let go, the freer we become. That doesn't mean we stop caring or stop trying. It means we stop carrying what was never ours to hold. It means we stop letting fear drive our decisions. It means we stop waiting for absolute certainty before we step forward. Think about the moments in your life when you were most afraid. Did fear ever really protect you, or did it just steal your peace? The truth is, no amount of anxiety has ever changed an outcome. No amount of overthinking has ever guaranteed success. The only thing that truly shifts our lives is trust. The kind of trust that allows us to breathe again, to release the weight of what we cannot control, and to move forward even when the path isn't clear. Because fear will always whisper, but we don't have to listen. Instead, we can choose to believe that even in the unknown, even in the waiting, even in the uncertainty, we are exactly where we are meant to be. Letting go feels unnatural. Everything in us fights against it. We've been taught to push harder, to hold on tighter, to fight for control, because if we don't, who will? Surrender is often seen as weakness, as giving up, as losing. But what if that's not true? What if real strength isn't found in grasping, but in releasing? What if trust isn't a passive act, but the bravest thing we could ever do? Think about the ocean. When a swimmer panics, they thrash, they fight the current, they exhaust themselves trying to control what cannot be controlled. But the ones who survive, they do the opposite. They surrender to the waves, they float. They trust that the water will carry them. Life is the same way. The more we fight against what we cannot control, the more we exhaust ourselves, the more we grip onto things not meant for us, the more we struggle. But when we choose to trust, when we stop trying to control the uncontrollable, there is peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having all the answers, but the kind that comes from knowing we don't have to. It's scary to let go. It's scary to release our grip on things we want so badly to control, our careers, our relationships, our futures. But there is something so freeing in realizing that we were never meant to carry it all. Surrender is not giving up. It's stepping into a deeper kind of strength. It's saying, I will do my part, but I will not live in fear of what is beyond me. I will trust that even in the unknown, I am not lost. Think back to the moments in your life when things didn't go the way you wanted. Maybe you begged for a door to stay open, only to realize later that its closing was the best thing that ever happened to you. Maybe you lost something you thought you couldn't live without, only to discover that what came next was even greater. Haven't you seen time and time again that the things you were most afraid of somehow worked out in ways you never expected? That's what surrender looks like. Not passively waiting for life to happen to you, but choosing to trust even when you don't see the full picture. Choosing to release the weight of what was never yours to carry. Choosing to believe that even when you don't understand the plan, you are still being led. Because the truth is, real strength isn't found in control. It's found in trust. And the moment we stop gripping so tightly, we finally free ourselves to receive the life we were meant to live. Storms don't ask for permission. They roll in without warning, darkening the sky, shaking the ground beneath you, making you feel small and powerless. And isn't that what life does sometimes? Just when you think you've got it all figured out, the unexpected happens. The job disappears, the relationship unravels, the diagnosis comes, and suddenly the ground you were standing on feels like quicksand. Your first instinct, control. fix it, find a way to stop the storm. But some storms are not meant to be stopped. Some storms are meant to be walked through. Fear tells you that if you don't fight for control, you'll be swallowed whole. But look at the birds when the wind rages. Do they try to fight against it? No, they rise above it. They spread their wings and ride the current, trusting that the wind that could destroy them can also carry them. Trusting doesn't mean pretending the storm isn't there. It doesn't mean ignoring the fear or the pain. It means knowing that even when the sky looks dark, even when the rain is relentless, you are not alone in it. It means believing that just because you can't see the sun doesn't mean it's not there. Trying to control the uncontrollable will only exhaust you. You were never meant to carry the weight of every outcome. You were never meant to predict every storm or stop every wave. But you were meant to trust that you are held, even when life doesn't make sense, that you are being led, even when the path isn't clear, that even when the winds rage, there is a strength greater than your fear. Think back to the storms you've already faced, the ones you thought would break you, the ones that made you question everything. And yet, you're still here. You survived. And not only did you survive, but you learned, you grew, you became stronger. What if that's what this storm is doing too? What if the struggle you're facing isn't a sign that you're lost, but a sign that you're being refined, shaped, prepared for something greater than you can see right now? We've all been there, standing in front of a closed door, heart pounding, fists clenched, begging for it to open. We convince ourselves that if we just push hard enough, if we just hold on a little longer, we can make it work. Because what if this was the door? What if this was the opportunity, the relationship, the dream that was supposed to change everything? And yet, no matter how much we plead, no matter how much we fight, the door stays shut. In that moment, it feels like failure. It feels like rejection. It feels like life is working against us. But what if it's not? What if that closed door isn't punishment, but protection? What if it's not the end, but a redirection? What if the very thing you're grieving right now is actually making space for something better than you ever imagined? Think about the times in your life when things didn't go your way, the times when you thought you lost your chance, only to realize later that what you thought was a setback was actually a setup for something greater. Haven't there been moments where you looked back and thought, thank God that didn't work out the way I wanted it to? But in the moment, it's hard to see. In the moment, all we feel is loss. The problem is we want to control the timing, we want to control the outcome, we want to know the why before we trust the process. But life doesn't work that way. Sometimes the doors we desperately want to walk through are closed because they were never meant for us. Sometimes what we think we need isn't what's best for us. And sometimes what feels like a detour is actually the most direct path to where we're meant to be. Trusting in the things we cannot control means believing that when a door closes, it's not the end of the story. It means having the courage to stop banging on a door that isn't opening and start looking for the one that is. It means understanding that rejection is often just redirection in disguise. One day you will look back and realize why that door had to close. One day you will see that what felt like loss was actually grace. One day you will understand that the closed doors weren't there to stop you, they were there to lead you somewhere even better. So for now, let go of the need to control. Let go of the fear that this was your only chance. Trust that what is meant for you will never require you to force it. And when the right door opens, you'll step through it knowing without a doubt that it was always meant to be yours. Life rarely makes sense in the moment. When things fall apart, when plans unravel, when you find yourself standing in the middle of uncertainty, it's hard to believe that any of it has a purpose. You ask, why is this happening? What did I do wrong? How am I supposed to move forward when I don't even know what's ahead? But here's the thing, you've been here before. You've faced uncertainty, pain, disappointment. And yet, when you look back, hasn't there always been a thread connecting it all? Hasn't there always been a way the pieces came together, even when you didn't understand them at the time? We live our lives forward, but we understand them backward. In the moment, we see only fragments of heartbreak, closed doors, unexpected changes. But when we look back, we start to see the pattern. The things that didn't work out were often the things that led us to something better. The losses we thought we'd never recover from became the very things that shaped us. The moments of waiting, of uncertainty, of wondering why were actually preparing us for something greater than we could have imagined. But trust is hard, isn't it? Especially when you can't yet see the full picture, especially when you're in the middle of something painful and all you want is an answer. Why this? Why now? Why me? And sometimes we don't get the answers right away. Sometimes we have to sit in the unknown. Sometimes we have to walk forward without clarity, without proof, without guarantees. That's what trust is. It's believing that even though you don't understand right now, one day you will. It's choosing to believe that there is meaning in the mess, even when you can't see it yet. Think about the moments in your life when you thought you had lost your way, only to realize later that you were exactly where you needed to be. The job you didn't get that led you to an even better opportunity. The relationship that ended, making space for one that was truly meant for you. The delay, the disappointment, the detour, all of it was leading you somewhere. And if it happened before, why wouldn't it be happening now? One day you'll look back at this very moment and see the purpose in it. One day you'll understand why things had to happen the way they did. One day the dots will connect and the struggle you're facing now will make sense in ways you can't yet imagine. So for now, even in the uncertainty, even in the waiting, trust. Trust that the pattern is still unfolding. Trust that the pieces are still coming together. Trust that one day you'll look back and realize this was never a detour. It was always the way forward. Waiting is hard. It stretches you, tests you, makes you question everything. It's in the waiting that doubts creep in. What if nothing changes? What if I'm wasting my time? What if I'm stuck here forever? And that's the hardest part, isn't it? Not knowing, not having a clear timeline, not being able to see the finish line. We are wired for certainty, for action, for movement. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is be still and trust that even when nothing seems to be happening, something is. Waiting is not wasted time. It feels like it is because we're conditioned to believe that progress only happens when we're moving. But think about nature. Seeds grow underground before they ever break the surface. The strongest trees spend years developing deep roots before they ever stretch toward the sky. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean nothing is happening. Just because the breakthrough hasn't come yet doesn't mean it's not on its way. Some of the most beautiful things take time to unfold, and rushing the process doesn't make them better, it only weakens them. But let's be honest, waiting can feel like torture. It makes us restless. It makes us question our worth. It makes us wonder if we've been forgotten. But what if waiting isn't punishment? What if it's preparation? What if the waiting isn't about the outcome at all, but about who you're becoming in the process? Maybe patience is being built in you. Maybe strength is being developed. Maybe trust is being stretched. Maybe this season of waiting is shaping you in ways that a quick answer never could. Think about a time in your life when things took longer than you wanted them to. Maybe it was a dream that didn't happen as fast as you thought it would. Maybe it was a season where everything felt stuck. And yet, looking back, wasn't there something happening in the waiting? Didn't you grow in ways you didn't expect? Didn't you learn things about yourself that you wouldn't have learned any other way? Sometimes the waiting is the work. Sometimes the most important shifts happen in the stillness. You may not understand the delay now. You may not see the purpose in the waiting, but one day you will. One day you'll look back and realize that the time you spent wondering, hoping, questioning, it wasn't wasted at all. It was necessary. It was shaping you. It was preparing you for what was always meant to be yours. So for now, trust. Trust that even when it feels like nothing is happening, everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust that the waiting isn't a sign that you've been forgotten. It's a sign that something worth waiting for is still being prepared for you. Fear has a way of making us believe we have to hold everything together on our own. It whispers that if we don't have all the answers, if we're not in control, if we're not constantly trying to fix, manage, and plan, then everything will fall apart. And so we grip tightly, we overthink, we stress, we try to force outcomes, not because we want to, but because we're afraid of what will happen if we don't. But here's the truth. Fear may scream the loudest, but that doesn't mean it's telling the truth. How many times have you let fear dictate your decisions? How many times have you hesitated, held back, or tried to control something that was never yours to control? And what did that fear really give you? Peace, freedom, or just exhaustion from carrying a weight you were never meant to bear? The reality is, no matter how much you try, you cannot control everything. And honestly, would you really want to? Would you really want the pressure of making sure every single thing in life unfolds exactly as you planned? What if the things you're trying so hard to control are actually the things that are holding you back from something greater? Trust means loosening your grip. It means breathing deep and realizing that you don't have to micromanage every part of your life. It means recognizing that fear wants you to believe that control is the answer, but in reality, trust is. It's not about pretending that fear doesn't exist. It's about choosing not to let it lead. It's about recognizing that uncertainty is not the enemy. Some of the best things in life, the love, the opportunities, the moments that take your breath away, come from the unexpected, the unplanned, the things you couldn't have controlled even if you tried. Think about the moments in your life when things didn't go the way you thought they should. Moments that felt uncertain, scary, even impossible. But didn't you make it through? Didn't things somehow work out in ways you never could have predicted? That's the thing about trust. It doesn't eliminate fear, but it gives you the strength to move forward anyway. It reminds you that you don't have to see the whole path to take the next step. It tells you that even though you don't have all the answers, you are still being guided. So take a breath, let go of the need to have everything figured out, release the grip of fear that tells you you have to control what is uncontrollable, and trust. Trust that you are not alone in this. Trust that even in uncertainty, you are being led. Trust that the things meant for you will find you, not because you forced them, but because you had the courage to open your hands and let go. There comes a moment in life when you realize that no amount of worry, no amount of planning, no amount of trying to control every little detail will change what is beyond your power. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can either keep exhausting yourself, trying to hold onto something that was never yours to control, or you can surrender. You can step back, take a breath, and trust that what is meant for you will never miss you. Surrender is not weakness. It is not giving up. It is the bravest thing you can do, because trust, real, deep, unwavering trust, requires courage. It requires believing that even in uncertainty, even in the unknown, even when nothing is going according to your plan, there is still a plan. It means accepting that just because you can't see the next step doesn't mean there isn't a path ahead. It means releasing the illusion that you are ever in control to begin with and finding peace in the fact that you don't have to be. How many nights have you stayed up worrying about things that were out of your hands? How many times have you replayed conversations in your mind trying to rewrite the past? How much energy have you spent trying to force things to go your way only to realize that no matter how hard you push, some doors just won't open. And what would it feel like, truly feel like, to finally let go of all of that? To stop carrying what isn't yours to carry? To stop trying to control what was never yours to control? The truth is, the things meant for you will come, not because you chased them, not because you forced them, but because they were always going to find you. And the things that aren't meant for you, no matter how tightly you hold on, no matter how hard you try to make them fit, they will eventually slip through your fingers. That's not failure. That's protection. That's grace. That's the kind of trust that allows you to live freely, not constantly looking over your shoulder, not worrying about what you might lose, but walking forward with open hands, knowing that what's ahead is better than anything you're leaving behind. Think about all the things in your past you thought you couldn't live without, the things you were terrified to lose, the things you thought defined you. And yet here you are, stronger, wiser, still standing. If you made it through then, why wouldn't you make it through now? If life has taken care of you before, why wouldn't it take care of you again? So breathe, release the grip, let go of the need to have all the answers. Trust that what is for you will stay and what is not will leave to make room for something greater. Trust that the path ahead is unfolding even if you can't see it yet. Trust that you are exactly where you are meant to be. And when you finally surrender, when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you'll feel something you may not have felt in a long time. Peace. Peace in knowing that you were never meant to carry this alone. Peace in knowing that even in uncertainty, you are still held. Peace in knowing that the things you cannot control were never yours to control in the first place. At some point, you have to make a choice between living in fear or living in trust. A choice between exhausting yourself trying to control what was never yours to control, or stepping into the freedom of knowing you don't have to. Because life will always be unpredictable. There will always be moments of uncertainty, seasons of waiting, doors that close, and questions that go unanswered. But what if the goal was never to figure it all out? What if the real work is learning to trust even when you can't see the whole picture? The truth is, control is an illusion. It gives us the false sense of security that if we plan enough, if we try hard enough, if we hold on tight enough, we can shape every outcome. But how many times in your life have things turned out differently than you expected? How many times have you looked back and realized that what you once feared was actually what freed you? That what you once fought to hold on to was never meant for you? That the things you worried about the most either never happened or didn't break you the way you thought they would? This is the moment where you let go, not because you don't care, not because you're giving up, but because you're choosing something better. You're choosing to trust that you don't have to have all the answers. You're choosing to believe that you are being guided even in the uncertainty. You're choosing to release the weight of trying to control everything and instead open yourself to what's ahead. So take a breath, let go of the worry, the overthinking, the fear of the unknown. Stand in the truth that you are not alone in this, that you are held, that even the things that don't make sense right now are part of a bigger story, one that is still unfolding in ways you cannot yet see. And when the fear creeps in, when the doubts whisper that you need to do more, push more, control more, remind yourself of this. Trust is not about knowing the outcome. It's about believing that no matter what happens, you will be okay. You will rise, you will find your way, and you will look back one day and realize that everything, even the things you didn't understand, was leading you exactly where you were meant to be.